Hello. So I thought I would make a car vid today um, about something that, you know, I see commented on occasionally, especially when we talk about things like robotic affirmations and very straightforward advice, which is like, and it's something we've touched upon before. If you're used to this, what we talk about here. This isn't going to be new, but it's important to remind ourselves of because, as usual, it's a nuanced type of um, concepts we have to deal with when trying to apply these principles. Anyway, the comments I occasionally see, especially when we're talking about a very straightforward thing like robotic affirming, for instance, which is just saying something over and over again, or really just Coué's advice in general, where like Coué always says, simplify, do not complicate, right? Simplify, do not complicate. And so, commenters sometimes ask or comment very justifiably, this is so straightforward, so easy. Coué always says, make it as easy as possible. Think it's as easy as possible. Why are we complicating it? Why are you, Tim, complicating it by giving all this extraneous advice about this subject? And that's a very good question when you look at it in that way. And so I thought I would just address that a little bit today. The short answer is, if this stuff works for you and you can just follow Coué's advice or follow the advice of somebody like Sammy Ingram when it comes to robotic affirming, and just affirm something over and over and over again until basically you feel a shift and you feel more satisfied, or ideally, if you're trying to manifest something specific externally, if that manifestation comes to you, if you can just do that and it's that straightforward for you, by all means, just do that. You don't need any coaching or additional advice about how to do that except to follow the technique. Almost all of these LOA techniques, in and of themselves, if you understand the technique and you apply it and you find it working for you, you don't need any other additional advice. You don't. And it's very true what Coué said about simplifying, not trying to complicate, right? You want to do what you can do to make this as straightforward and as uncomplicated as possible. Ideally, again, like if we're thinking about Coué's advice, in regards to like the general formula and saying, before bed every night, every day, in every way, I'm getting better and better. Every day, in every way, I'm getting better and better. Doing that for a couple minutes and falling asleep to that. Waking up in the morning and doing that again. And then going about your day and reminding yourself that you're getting better and better occasionally. And that's it. That's all you have to do. What screws us up is this. The reason I talk about this stuff, the reason that I go on and on about it, even though it is extremely simple to understand, is that for the large majority of people from what I've seen, including myself most certainly, this stuff is not easy. It's not easy. It's that simple. It should be easy, seemingly. Intellectually, it should be easy. As a concept, it seems very easy. But if it was as easy as we can be led to believe, or as it sounds, you would see many, many more people with success doing it. You would see Coué, for instance, spoken about a lot more today than just some dude in the car talking about him. And there's no other videos in English on YouTube about Coué, just about. It's simple but not easy, is what I like to say, for most of us. Now, there are exceptions. Sammy Ingram has a big enough channel, so there are plenty of people on there that they just do her advice, which is very straightforward, even though, she says a bunch of other stuff too. But her advice in and of itself, just to repeat something over and over again, doesn't get much more straightforward than that. They do that, and they consistently get things they want just by doing that. That's it. There are people who follow Coué's advice, their life just gets better and better, and they just do that. That's it. But it's not like that for most people. It just isn't. It's not that straightforward. It's certainly not that easy. For instance, when you are affirming or doing really any LOA technique, and I talk all about this in the Law of Attraction Simplified. This is something that, this is one of the main things I talk about in general when it comes to these ideas, these manifesting ideas, and just feeling better more consistently, is when you do a technique, right? All this resistance, or whatever you want to call it, is going to then come up when you're doing the technique or after you've done it. And it's going to make you question whether what the technique you did, whether it's working or whether it worked, right? And you have to work with that resistance. You have to move through the resistance or deal with that resistance in some way. You want to have the faith that, this resistance is just part of the process. These feelings of discomfort, this feeling of doubt is just part of the process, and it doesn't matter because you're still going to feel better. You're still going to shift into more and more of what you want. You're still going to get what you want if you're trying to manifest a specific thing in your external reality. But the resistance is a real thing, whatever you want to call it. Some people calling it like a test or whatever. You don't have to use language like that, but you feel stuff when you're trying to change who you are right now into something else on a practical level. You're going to experience doubt. And the doubt is not just going to usually be intellectual doubt. It's going to be emotional doubt, where all these feelings of fear come up. Like, this is not going to happen. I'm crazy for trying to get this to happen. There's all these reasons, and I'm going to list them off for you right now. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, why this is not going to happen. What are you doing? You're nuts. And the technique is supposed to help you think that you're not nuts and that this is going to work, and that this is just, passing thoughts, passing doubt that means nothing and is insignificant in the big picture. And the big picture, what is significant, you are accessing by doing the technique and assuming the best, assuming you're going to get what you want, believing you're going to get what you want. Eventually, your belief and your faith is going to completely override your doubt, and you're going to get what you want. You're going to feel better, and your reality is going to shift more into what you want it to be through your conscious attention and conscious feeling of the situation. And that's the nuance. That's the nuance. That's the whole thing. That's complicated. If you can make it straightforward for yourself, if you can simplify and not complicate it, then just do that to the best of your ability. Me, even though I'm talking about all these techniques and all these nuances, I'm still in my own life. Sorry, the sun is just crazy for this car video today. In my own life, I'm still trying always to simplify and not to complicate, for my own experience, for my own, spiritual manifesting experiences and everything. I'm always trying to make it as simple as possible. Of course, that goes without saying. And obviously, when I work with clients, I'm trying to make it as simple as possible for them as I can. Usually what happens is you're working with a client, and it's like they have all these ideas, and they've heard all these different theories. They've tried different techniques, some that have worked. They're usually wondering, should I do this instead? Should I do this on top of this, on top of this? And what I do is I say, just do this one thing. This has worked for you before. You're really interested in trying this technique. Just go with that, and that's enough. That's simplifying, not complicating. And someone like Coué took that to an extreme level and was able to convince a lot of his clients or patients or whatever you want to call them, a lot of the people he worked with, that, he would run them through a couple different exercises. I'll link above to the video where we go over some of the Coué exercises that he did with clients to get them in that kind of accepting state where they believed in themselves, right? And once he had done that, they started to believe, and they believed that just simply reciting something and reminding themselves of something, a couple times a day and throughout the day if they needed to, was enough to shift their lives. Just about as straightforward as you can get. Somebody like Neville, a lot of his advice is he convinces you that if you feel something, if you really feel it, right, viscerally feel it as real, then it's going to happen in your 3D reality, right? And if you believe that, if you have that conviction, it's done. That's all you have to do. Simplify, don't complicate. But belief, cultivating that belief, right? That's what often is not easy. If you find something that makes you believe, whatever the heck it is, you're in good shape. If you don't believe, it's going to be a much more rockier road usually, you know? And if you don't believe, it's always good, in my opinion, to just, go general and stay general in the sense of like, well, I'm trying to get a specific thing in my life. I don't know how it's going to happen. I don't believe it. Then don't think about that. Just relax. Relax more, try less. Focus more on how you feel internally, right? Or just focus on God and realize that, the universe has ways past your understanding. Your subconscious, your unconscious has ways past your understanding to figure out how to improve your life and get you to feel better, right? But you have to put your trust or your faith or your belief in something. And the easiest way to do that often is just to relax more, to get yourself relaxed. When you don't feel relaxed, and you feel like you can't relax, that's a real issue. And that's, again, something that we often talk about. What do you do when you feel like crap? I'll put a link above to another car video I did about that. But yeah, it should be easy. But it rarely is. It rarely is. And this is the difference between theory and practice. Everybody on YouTube loves to talk about theory. And, it should be easy. This is how it works. Everyone's got their own opinion. I'll tell you right now, my opinion doesn't mean much of shit. What I have that a lot of these other folks on here probably don't have is just experience in actively doing my best to apply this in my life and in other people's lives, via, working with clients and stuff like that. It's not easy for most people, or you would hear a lot more practical success stories than you hear. And not just this one-off bullshit, da-da-da-da-da. When Coué said it was easy, he meant it. Keep it as easy as possible. He meant it. But there are not people like Coué talking about this stuff right now, generally speaking. So do what you can to keep it easy. And don't listen to me. If I sound too complicated or too, just spouting a bunch of bullshit, please don't listen to me then. Keep it easy. Get off YouTube. One of the easiest ways to keep this stuff easy for yourself is to get the fuck off YouTube and follow the original teachers and teachings who make this stuff as straightforward as possible. But if you need help on the nuances and the tricky stuff that, in my experience, just about everybody goes through, and is really the largest part of this process and this navigating, your manifesting experience or your journey, is that if you need help, I'm here to help you. Now, I'm not going to spout theory with you. I'm going to help you. And there's other coaches out there, if you look hard, that will help you. But they're rare. And they are not interested in theory. They're interested in legitimately making it not complicated for you and simplifying it for you. Simplify always, do not complicate. If you have questions or would like coaching, radicalcounselor.com.